This week on Christian World News, from Capitol Hill to the pulpit, Americans are divided. How can we start healing together? Plus, as the nation battles the deadly coronavirus pandemic, churches are stepping up and getting creative. How ministries are meeting needs and changing hearts. And the pilgrims were all about more than just turkey and pumpkin pie. How these men and women influence the destiny of our nation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Christian World News. I'm George Thomas. A house divided cannot stand. That applies not only to our country, but also to the church. The turmoil following the presidential elections here in America has sparked similar conflicts in our churches. So what must we do to come together? Charlene Aaron has that story.
A recent national headline pointed out that many of today's churches mirror the country's political divide. Pastors say it's an issue of growing concern at a time when unity and healing are needed in Washington and beyond. Dr. Ed Stetzer of the Billy Graham Center at Wheaton College maintains when politics causes people to see one another as enemies, the church cannot afford to follow suit.
At the end of the day, the people that I'm in the body of Christ with need one another. And I think one of the things that we don't want is to bite and devour one another, the scriptures talk about, right?
Pastor Dan Backens of New Life Church in Virginia Beach points out that believers, both Republican and Democrat, share a faith that encourages love for one's neighbor.
In the church, in the house of God, we have a higher ideal, and that is to say, we may not agree, but we can love each other. And both sides of an issue, I think, should both take steps towards friendship.
As many take a political hard line, Backens cautions against potentially threatening the church's witness. Case in point, Christian author Trillia Newbell posted an online prayer asking God to watch over President Trump. When she did the same for Vice President Biden, it led to this response. She followed up with this tweet: "I'm troubled for all my non-Christian friends on Facebook who see professed Christians say this stuff over a politically neutral Christian discipline."
This zeal has caused a radicalism on both sides. And when you get radicalized, it's hard to be reasoned with you. So I appeal to the church that's kind of in the middle and pastors to speak up, and let's all commit to being bridge builders and peacemakers.
His message to believers who voted in this election?
I would say to the person that's really holding out for Mr. Trump, I say, that's okay. Pray and intercede. If it doesn't happen, like King David, he prayed for his son to live, and he didn't. He didn't get what he wanted. So what did he do? He got up, he washed himself, he worshiped, and he went home. Go on worshiping God and go home. And the other side, if Biden is the winner, don't have triumphalism and point your finger at the guys that lost.
Dr. A.R. Bernard of the Cultural Christian Center in Brooklyn also looks to Scripture.
That God works everything in accordance with his purposes, no matter who's in power. If we believe in the sovereignty of God, God is sovereign at all time, whether it's our chosen candidate in power or someone that we would not choose.
Faith leaders point to humility and understanding as keys to bridging the gap.
The anger of the world cannot avail the righteousness of God. And anger, and most anger, 95% of anger is unrighteous anger. That angry spirit doesn't make consensus. It doesn't make unity.
Prayer is also vital.
I think anger is not a call to action. Anger is a call to prayer, because prayer is where we elevate the heart and mind to God. We allow him to lift us out of the circumstance and situation and get his lens on the situation, get his perspective on it. And it frees us from the anxieties that are associated with anger.
Meanwhile, Stetzer's desire is that the church comes together as one, regardless of who occupies the White House.
At the end of the day, there's a bloody cross and an empty tomb, right? Jesus has been raised from the dead, and that same Jesus who's been raised from the dead dwells in us. And if he dwells in us, that brings us together.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Some very, very important messages there. You know, the 2020 holiday season will be like none other in many of our lifetimes. A COVID comeback is putting a damper on family and church gatherings. But as CBN's Tara Mergener shows us, that doesn't mean churches and ministries need to be on the sidelines during these unprecedented times. Take a look.
Experience in helping people deal with tragedy and disaster allows the faith community to gain trust, reduce fear, and spread hope where it's needed most.
And religious gatherings are emerging as hotspots now.
As COVID restrictions ramp up again across the country,
we also put out new guidelines for places of worship.
Churches must remain creative.
How was that for you?
In the 20 years I've been ministering, so I just had to imagine that they were out there and try to ignore all the empty seats.
To ensure meaningful worship while encouraging hope and fellowship amid a relentless pandemic.
In that great solidarity, we too shall rise.
Still, we find our social and spiritual interactions limited, not by choice, but in many cases by law.
Church services have resumed here in New York City, but with limited capacity.
Since COVID first hit, we've seen how loneliness, fear, and stress can overwhelm.
The church is oftentimes where people turn first when they're in a crisis and looking for help. So that one of the immediate things that churches can do would be, to provide counseling or other types of support services.
It was like, hey, I believe that the Lord is calling us out of the boat, like Peter.
Ernest Clover of DC's Dream Center says following that divine direction means leaning on faith.
I don't know where the other side is. I don't know how bad this storm will get. Lord, we are grateful that we have this opportunity to come here today.
With the blessing of his team, Clover and the Dream Center have been supporting the community.
7 days a week, giving out non-essential items has been a drastic change.
How many?
Just one cold, one hot.
Temporarily scrapping other community programs to focus on food.
And I get to work there on Saturdays in the open market when they distribute produce to everyone.
And other supplies to help those in need.
I help prepare the meals that go out every day since March 16th.
It fills the gaps. I would say due to the income that comes in for me right now, it's not a whole lot, but it does what it does.
We've had over 50,000 meals go out of that window in that little White House. We've had over 100,000 hygiene items and non-perishable food items go out of this Dream Center. And something I wouldn't even have the parameter to pray for, which was fresh produce.
And much like churches and ministries elsewhere,
because the structures of society have been so thoroughly rocked to their foundations.
People are coming to the center with a hunger for more than food.
Even when we're not giving out items, they just want to talk.
A basic need that for some is no longer easily met, which health experts say can have grave consequences. As the government and healthcare system deal with areas like testing, masks, and social distancing, Dr. Stephen Gersovich says ministries play an essential role addressing the unprecedented social isolation felt by so many.
Being able to offer people, the hope that we have in Jesus Christ, and being able to, to offer people, opportunities for connectedness. We as a church are uniquely positioned to be able to care for them and to offer encouragement and hope.
Experts say outreach during this holiday season could be more important than ever. Even before COVID, this time of year can be lonely and even depressing for some of your family and friends. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Thank you, Tara. Up next, did you know that 10% of Americans are descendants from the Mayflower? Still, those early settlers made a much bigger contribution to America. That story in a moment. Stay with us.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Welcome back to Christian World News. Pilgrims are synonymous with Thanksgiving. You cannot have or think of one without the other. But these brave men and women deserve to be remembered for much more. Their covenant and form of self-rule shaped America's Constitution and the entire government. And as Paul Strand reports, they believed religious freedom and liberty were worth dying for.
2020 is the 400th anniversary of the founding of Plymouth. I think that's a huge milestone. It's some great milestone in human history.
Christian historian Jerry Newcomb's documentary, The Pilgrims, looks at how those 51 pilgrims not only survived their first Massachusetts winter, but went on to influence their future nation.
This small group casts a very large shadow.
From the documentary.
Did you know that today 10% of the population of the United States are Mayflower descendants? 30 million people from 51.
The Pilgrims founded America for all intents and purposes.
In those days, England demanded all citizens belong to the Church of England and conform to its beliefs or face harsh punishment.
You will worship as they say you worship. And so to do this illegally meant you could be arrested.
Or even put to death. So the Pilgrims fled.
They just wanted to worship Jesus in the purity of the gospel, and the king wouldn't let them do that. He was ruling it over their conscience. And that's why they fled.
They'd come to believe in radical ideas they found in the Bible, like they had rights given by God, and that he wanted them to be free, to govern themselves from within.
The Mayflower was a cargo ship, but the most precious cargo that was carried across the Atlantic were the ideas in the hearts of the Pilgrims that were drawn from the Bible.
And after unexpected winds blew them off course away from any governing authority, they made a covenant between God and man for a new form of government.
The Pilgrims gave us the Mayflower Compact, which was an agreement for self-government under God, which was really the first step in the creation, ultimately, of the Declaration of Independence and of the U.S. Constitution.
It was a polarity change in world government. Instead of top-down, ruled by these kings that keep getting more and more powerful, it's bottom-up. It's the people themselves deciding what laws they're going to pass and agreeing to submit to them.
It made freedom the cornerstone of America, as shown by the words on the Liberty Bell.
It says, proclaim liberty throughout the land and to all the inhabitants thereof.
Some students are wrongly taught the Pilgrims stole from the Indians and treated them horribly. The record shows the opposite was true.
The Pilgrims were kind to the Indians. They showed them love. They showed them compassion. They showed them the godly way to live.
They did take some buried corn in cold New England, but only because they were literally starving.
And they even said, when they later came into contact with the Native Americans, they said, find out whose corn that is so we may repay them.
They didn't steal land in Plymouth. It had been abandoned by the Indians.
There was a plague that occurred 3 years before the voyage of the Mayflower, and it wiped out about 95% of the Indians in that particular region.
They wouldn't come back on it because of the plague. The Pilgrims took land nobody wanted.
And they showed the Indians they'd treat them as equals.
There was even a situation where a Pilgrim killed an Indian. The Pilgrim was put on trial.
The Indians expected
a mock trial, go through the motions, get it over with, let him go. After all they did was kill an Indian.
And that's not what happened. They found the Pilgrim guilty, and he was hanged for murder.
Everybody was equal under the law. Now the Indians could trust the Pilgrims.
The Pilgrims showed future Americans a God-blessed cause was something worth suffering for, even dying for. The Mayflower's Captain Jones offered to rescue them from the first deadly winter they faced.
Half their men have died. This is not what they signed up for at all. And Jones says, anybody who wants to come back to England with me, I will take them. Not one of them went.
The Pilgrims made living by the Bible and loving it a very American habit.
And their textbook was the Bible.
The Bible was the key book for the first 200 years.
The Founding Fathers brought America an enlightened revolution.
And above all, they quoted the Bible, 4 times more than they quoted any human author.
It gave them the go-ahead to throw off Britain's ungodly tyranny.
They recognize that there is a higher law, the law of God, and that God presides over the affairs of nations.
You are to obey the lawful authorities, but if the lawful authorities take too much authority unto themselves and they violate God's laws, then obedience to God means resistance to tyrants.
So the Pilgrims who'd fled England for their freedom laid the foundations that shaped America and eventually its freedom. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Sir Paul. Coming up, the pandemic has done nothing to stop Christian persecution across the globe. In fact, it's getting worse. That story in a moment.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're going to bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Welcome back to Christian World News. It's a freedom many people here in the United States take for granted, the freedom to worship. But in Africa, to Asia, to the Middle East, millions of people face hostility for their faith. In fact, new figures from the Pew Research Center show restrictions are at their highest levels. I recently spoke with an expert who monitors religious intolerance. Here to discuss the worsening conditions for religious freedom around the world is Elizabeth Cassidy, Director of Research and Policy with the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom. Elizabeth, great to have you on the broadcast. The Pew Research Center has been tracking restrictions on freedom of religion in 198 countries since 2007. According to them, religious persecution is worsening worldwide, right?
Pew did just put out their latest report. Yes, that's correct. They do show that the trend of religious restrictions, which is not necessarily religious freedom violations, have been consistently worsening. Authoritarian states, in our reviewing of the evidence on this at USERF as well, we have many authoritarian states that we report on that severely violate religious freedom. They tend to want to control every aspect of their citizens' lives, including any religious beliefs or practices. This year was the first time that Pew looked at government type and compared it to their data, and you're absolutely correct. They did find that there was a association between authoritarian regimes and high levels of government restrictions on religion.
Are there areas of the world that are worse than others for people of faith?
Pew definitely shows that the highest government restrictions levels are in the Middle East region and the Asia-Pacific region, and that's been pretty consistent throughout their reporting. Our lens is a little bit different because we're reporting on religious freedom violations, which means violations within the meaning of the international standards on freedom of religion or belief, as well as the U.S. law, the International Religious Freedom Act that we work under. Not every restriction is necessarily a violation, but we also do see a number of countries in both the MENA and Asia-Pacific regions where we have serious concerns.
Why are people of faith, Elizabeth, considered a threat to governments around the world?
Well, for authoritarian governments, as I said, there's a need to control, a want to control. Anything outside the government's control is viewed as threatening, religion included, religion in particular, because it is a source of sort of belonging and inspiration for people outside of the state. I should say, too, though, that these reports, Pew's reports and our reports, also cover people who are not religious, because the right to religious freedom is a right to believe in the religion of your choice or not to believe in any religion at all. And we do see in a number of these countries where there are serious and severe violations against people who don't want to follow any faith, in particular in countries where they enforce an official or majority faith on everybody. Those who don't follow that faith, whether they want to follow a different faith or whether they want to be non-religious, often are suffering religious freedom violation.
Research continues to show that Christians are the most persecuted religious group in the world, right?
What the Pew study continues to show is that there are reports of harassment against Christians in more countries than any other group. Muslims have reports in the second highest number of countries, both very, very similar numbers. That's also been consistent. I think it shows how sort of widespread harassment on religious grounds can be. I think a very striking figure is that the group that is harassed in the third highest number of countries is the Jewish community, which is quite striking given how small the Jewish community is in terms of global population.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me today, George.
You're welcome.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back to the broadcast. One of Jerusalem's most iconic sites is the Tower of David at the entrance of the Old City. Now, this ancient citadel is getting its first major overhaul in hundreds of years. That's right, it's so old. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
It's seen Muslim invaders, Roman conquest, and the Crusaders. The Tower of David Museum is one of Israel's historic and archaeological treasures. Now it's one of the largest conservation projects here.
This is a rare and unique opportunity for archaeologists because we have a lot of questions about the citadel, archaeological questions, historical questions. Not every day you get the chance to explore a symbol in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem's chief archaeologist, Amit Raem, oversees this massive project.
Suddenly, the stones start to speak. And we, the archaeologists, see things. We document everything. We are excavating. We discover hidden passages, ancient walls, ancient fortifications. It's becoming alive.
It's a huge project to renew this museum for the future visitors. Of course, we're talking about 7 new galleries which tell the story of Jerusalem, but it's more than this. It's all what you see around, conservation of the remains, the ancient walls, the infrastructure of the museum.
It's a timepiece of Jerusalem.
You can see the layers upon layers upon layers and understand the beauty of the evidence, the archaeology, and the history together. The combination is really unique.
Everyone was here. Everyone wanted to seize the citadel, to hold the citadel. If you want to understand, if you want to learn about the history of Jerusalem, so this is the place, starting from the first temple period and ending in modern times.
The Renewal Project is uncovering hidden treasures and secrets of ancient Jerusalem. For example, this passageway may have been used by Crusaders to escape the citadel.
Every time I'm here, I just imagine that in the time of trouble, all the knights, all the Crusader knights, all the Muslim knights, running away in this dark tunnel, emerging outside the city.
The Renewals Project goal is to bring the story of Jerusalem to life.
It's the heart of Jerusalem, and this place represents everything, all the story of Jerusalem. It's a very unique, it's a symbol of Jerusalem for many generations.
The visitor, we will have here the ultimate experience before they enter to visit Jerusalem. You must visit here.
Chris Mitchell reporting for us from Jerusalem. Folks, that is it for this week's edition of Christian World News. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and a great weekend ahead. Until next time, goodbye and God bless.